What's up, Rotters, and welcome back to Brainrot, the podcast that takes a deep dive into the best and worst horror films of the 80s and 90s. I'm Stevie, your VHS veteran. I hope you're all doing horrendously. Thanks to all of you who checked out our bonus episode on Saturday covering selected films from the first 2 days of London Fright Fest. Me and Matt Draper gave you a spoiler-free lowdown of 8 movies, some bangers and some clangers, and one in particular that made me want to use a cheese grater on my eyes and ears. It was distributed by Troma, so there you go. We will be continuing our coverage of the 5-day festival over on Patreon. In tomorrow's episode, we cover a Christmas set shocker and Dario Argento's new Giallo movie, Dark Glasses. So to hear the rest of the festival's coverage, just go to patreon.com/Stevie's Brainrot or click the link below. Right then, folks, get your acid-laced custard pies lined up because it's time. We are finally covering Killer Klowns from Outer Space. And it's taken this long because I knew it needed the right guests to join me to chat about this formative height of 80s concept and design masterpiece from our beloved Chiodo Brothers. And those guests were Epic Film Guys, aka Justin, Jeremy, and B-Ratty. Their podcast Brain Stew is one of my go-to genre pods. Not just because it's hilarious, informative, and gives you that sort of cozy feeling of watching a movie with mates, but because it's called frickin' Brain Stew. We're basically kin. And could the timing be any bastard better? If you haven't already heard, TerraVision Games, the folks who brought you Friday the 13th game, have announced a brand new 3v7 asymmetrical multiplayer game of Killer Klowns from Outer Space, due to be released early next year. Oh my god, I'm so stoked. We're getting both a Killer Klowns game and a Texas Chainsaw game in the same quarter, my friends. What's next? I'm holding my breath for a Cannibal Holocaust game. Well, maybe not. Oh, unless you get to play as the turtle and you get to destroy every last one of that heinous film crew. But let's see how the Killer Clown game goes first. Well, it is time to open the tent and let our guests in. Welcome to Justin, Jeremy, and Brady, aka B-Ratty, ? Or collectively, Epic Film Guys. Hello.
Hello.
How's it going, man?
Hey guys, I'm freaking stoked to have you guys here and joining me. And not just because it's you guys, but also to talk about this film, Chiodo Brothers, Killer Klowns from Outer Space. But before we crack that candy, I don't know. I want to know a bit more about Epic Film Guys, and just for the listeners to tell them, because to me it looks like the fucking dream. Like, talking about and screening horror films, like, that's my lifelong ambition. But firstly, actually, just to break the name down, is it Epic Film Guys, or are you Epic Film Guys?
I wish I had an answer to that. I came up with
both.
The name.
You can be both.
I came up with the name in my wife's parents' kitchen because I had to come up with a name for the thing. And this is like over 8 years ago when I did this, and I was like, that sounds good enough for now. So yeah, I mean, so totally thankful for all the opportunities we've had, and having this amazing group, the current roster that we have on our new show, Brain Stew, that we started, Jeremy, I think almost a year ago at this point.
Yeah, next month is a year, which is insane. It's gone by very, very quickly, as time does.
Yeah, so we've been around for quite a long time. We've done a lot of different crossovers, but we're always up for more, which is why we're so excited to be here to talk about this movie. And I knew it was perfect for us because I know particularly my co-host here, Jeremy, is a massive fucking fan of this movie, so I'm
actually sitting across right now from a life-size shorty Killer Klowns from Outer Space.
Shut up, from Trick or Treat Studios.
No, this one was released Spirit Halloween stores.
That's what I meant. I meant Spirit Halloween.
So like here,
I know the exact. Yeah, I hate you. A
lot of people
I've
do.
looked at that, and the shipping costs the same as the shorty. I've looked at that ages ago, that's awesome. I've got like my Ghoulies replicas and stuff.
Oh hell yeah!
And all my health, but that one, I think just the shipping for that wasn't looking good.
Yeah.
Where does your history with this film go back to then?
Me, when I was a kid, it was the video market boom.
Right.
Going to the video store was almost religious experiences for me. I begged my dad every single Friday. Dad, can you take me to the video store? And our audience has heard me talk about it a million times, but it was cool because my dad was like the cool dad, so he was like, "Look, I will rent you whatever you want. But the moment that you get scared and you tell your mom that you watched some scary shit and it comes back on me, you're done. You're cut off." So there was a couple times where I did watch some shit that fucked me up a little bit. For some reason, Pet Sematary 2 fucked me up. I don't know why. It was like
Clancy Brown.
It was like the alcoholic.
Yeah.
Dude, it was, man. It was the alcoholic stepdad that was fucking... Dude, he was terrifying before he became like a zombie guy. And then he dude, that movie fucked me up and I was like, okay, I'm so goddamn scared. And what's funny is my dad was a cop too, so I'm like, okay. He was much nicer than that guy, but still, I'm like, oh man, like that guy's the fucking scariest guy ever. And if I go and tell my parents that I can't sleep in my room, like I'm fucking done. So I turned on some Looney Tunes, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna watch some cartoons. I'm gonna try to relax a little bit.
The palate.
Yeah, but man, going to the video store, I rented a lot of the same titles over and over again. But
yeah. It's the same.
There was...
You just that. I was the same as you. Like you'd go there, and it would be, as you say, that religious experience. And I would spend. My parents would have to take it in turns. The good thing is, my mum was up for it too. She let me because it shut me up for a couple of hours. And so I would spend so long. In my head, it was like an hour, but it can't have been that long. And I'd always rent one of the same, maybe 7 films that I had on rotation, and this was one of them. So I'm assuming that's the same with you.
100% the same, dude. I've loved this movie because, dude, it's funny. It's got fantastic practical effects in it. I mean, dude, these clowns are so bizarre and strange looking. I'd never seen anything like it ever, and there really hasn't been very many things much like it since then. So, goddamn, dude, their teeth with the drool, with the spit, and the drool. Right. Something scary, but also kind of funny and goofy looking with them. So, immediately captivated me.
Yeah, there's something really uncanny about it because it's so messed up, and I don't remember, like you were saying, I don't remember being scared by it as a kid. But actually watching it this time, there was there's a couple of moments where it suddenly turns really fucking dark and predatory and sinister, and we'll talk about that. But what about this genre, and specifically the sort of 80s schlocky this time? What about you, Brady?
It's funny. I always talk about on our show that I got into this genre super, super late. It came
like 2 weeks ago.
It was actually today when Justin said, "Hey, I need you on this episode." I was like, "Oh fuck." No, but I, as a kid, like religious family, didn't watch a lot of stuff outside of like old John Wayne movies, and I would see bits and pieces of movies like on AMC Fear Fest. I lived in, like, my room was in the basement of our house, so I could, like, turn the TV on, just turn the volume down and watch until I got scared. But, like, I couldn't even watch Scooby-Doo. So, for me, getting into...
Because your family wouldn't allow you to, right?
To. And it was kind of scary, man. Those Hex girls
I see, yeah.
Kind of freaky. And then, as you get older, you find out they're freaky in a different way. But I really didn't get into horror until 18, 19, and I met Jeremy, and he was just suggesting things like all the time to me, and so I'd go back and watch it. My appendix ended up rupturing, so I had like 3 months off of work where I just binged horror movies, and it was great. So for me, I typically dwell like in the late 90s, early 2000s slasher era, but 80s schlock is great. Last year, Justin and I went to the Mahoning Drive-In in Pennsylvania, and they were showing Critters. And I had never seen it before, and seeing it on the big screen like that, like outside with everybody just wanting to watch it, is amazing.
Not only just everybody, we hung with and did photos with
We
the
did.
Chiodo Brothers. Like, and
Oh,
did
shut
a whole.
up.
It was awesome. They're amazing people, and we had the inn when they were doing all their photo ops. There was like a life-size spaceship from Critters, and we totally were just hanging with them the whole. I was like so fucking hammered. It was amazing.
It was like 6:15 in the
I
evening.
almost. I swear to God, I almost pulled my pants down and stuck my into that critter's mouth. It looked open and wide. I was like, "That looks good."
It
to me
did.
right now.
Justin looked at the Chiodo Brothers and said, "No, this is a critter."
I'll show
Oh
you a
my
critter.
gosh! But yeah,
Nice.
that's my backstory.
Well, I was going to ask I was going to ask you, Justin, but how you feel about it, and it sounds like you're really, really into it.
I think it's cool.
Justin
Yeah.
pulls his pants down for a lot of things, but especially
Okay.
80s schlock.
I'm pretty sure I should put 80s schlock as the next tattoo on my forehead. I mean, dude, it's the in thing now. I already have my throat and everything else. I should just do like the dumbest shit on my face, so people know as if they don't already know.
You could
right?
get like a pelvis tattoo, and it could say 80s schlock, and then like you can exit out and say like 80s cock.
80
Yeah,
schlong.
there you go.
Oh,
Dude.
I can't-
Oh,
Speaking
I like
of that,
both of
so
those.
one day, this is going to be a side note, but my wife and I were driving on the highway,
Please.
and we looked next to us, and this dude had a huge nose. So I thought it would be funny, and I said, "Oh man, check out the schlong on that guy." And my wife said, "What the fuck are you talking about?"
What
And I
kind
was
of
like,
dad
"Oh, no."
joke bullshit is that?
I was like, "Oh no, I meant schnoz." Fuck.
Schnoz. Right in the
Right in the
schnoz.
But I mean, to kind of comment on what the question is in regards to getting into 80s schlock, which is most definitely my favorite horror genre. I think the 80s by far is the best decade of horror. I don't think anything else matches it. I don't think anything else will, but hey, I may be wrong. But though
Prove us wrong, Hollywood.
I'm
Prove us
almost
wrong.
usually never wrong. But I mean,
But also, it's because it was so exciting as well, because of that boom of the VHS. Like, pretty much anyone could make a movie, and everyone knew horror films just sold, and you just stick to the formula. And then, what an exciting time it was! And I don't think no one can ever feel that again, or we can't replicate that with all the digital and stuff of just walking into a floor-to-ceiling stack of horror movies in front of you. There's none of this scrolling or watching. You couldn't watch a trailer, you couldn't read a review, you couldn't Google it. You had to take a fucking punt, and they were terrible. Of course they were, but that was the fun. And I just think, and as I'm doing this podcast, because I wanted to go back and watch all of these films that I was obsessed with. A lot I've seen since, a lot I haven't, and a lot of them are way worse than I remember, but then some of them are deeper than I remember. So it's cool, but it's I agree with you. I just think, and I don't know if it's biased because of when I was born, but I agree with you, Justin, that I think it is the best decade of horror.
just to let you know, if you didn't agree, I'd be like removing myself from the conversation and leaving and going,
Cool.
thanks for the opportunity.
You'd be like, "Where's Justin?" And we'd be like, "Oh, he's peeing," and then he just wouldn't
he's
come
peeing.
back.
Nope.
We'd have to
Right.
pour some water out.
I'm going
on
to
the
play with my
side.
Batman
Actually-
dolls back there.
Just circling back to your genitals, Justin. So one thing I was...
Great idea.
So, funnily enough, I did think about this. So, you screened Ghoulies recently, right?
No, I went our buddy's movie dumpster.
Oh, it was the movie dumpster, that was
our
it.
brothers
Right.
from another mother. They screened for their first ever live event at the historic Colonial Theater in Phoenixville, Pennsylvania. It's the Blob Theater, the original Blob Theater. It was just their
Incredible.
first ever time doing a live event, and I know Joe from Movie Dumpster is like massive on Ghoulies. So it was that and the gate on 35 millimeter. So I went to support those dudes, and we were a sponsor for the event. So
Nice.
it was absolute blast. So shout out to Movie Dumpster. You should get those
yes.
guys on the show too. They're
That's the plan. I will.
they're what the fuck is up.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So in England, when you're growing up, one of the sort of euphemisms for a young man's genitalia is ghoulies. So
No
we'd
fucking
say,
way.
"Oh, mind your ghoulies." Or,
Holy
"Oh,
shit.
I
you know,
love that.
or- yeah, and so this is what's really cool. So on the poster or on the front cover of the VHS in the US, obviously it says "Ghoulies, they'll get you in the end," and it's the one on the toilet. And the double entendre there is "get you in the end," like your end, like in your ass.
Wow. Wow.
And in the UK, it says "Ghoulies, they'll get yours," because
Oh shit! Yeah,
as in
'cause-
they'll get
yeah.
your ghoulies.
Oh man, I
There
cannot
you go.
wait to go upstairs and just whip out my ghoulie to my wife.
I'm gonna
helicopter it
I'm
around.
telling you right now, dude. I'm gonna just be like, this is the ghoulie now.
So, like, dude, if your penises were a ghoulie's character, like, which, like, I feel like mine would be the green one.
Ghoulie.
Not fish ghoulie. I feel like mine would be the fish one. Justin, I don't know. I think the rat one would be yours.
Dude.
Something about that one.
Well, I used to breed rats, man.
There it is.
Yeah, so.
There it is.
Yeah.
And it's all lining up.
There you go.
Had a feeling.
I'm sorry to veer away from from the testicles now, but first of all, before we talk about the actual film, clowns in horror, I'm gonna start with me because everyone has their own relationship with clowns and how they are utilized in horror. And for me, I am a huge coulrophobe. I am terrified of clowns, but I'm not terrified of clowns that are meant to be terrifying. So in Tim Curry as It is one of the most terrifying things I've saw, but it's not. It's more about his performance. Killer Klowns from Outer Space, they can creep me out. The film Clown, the Eli Roth produced one, scary in a horror way, but they don't terrify me on a base level. But actual clowns, a grown-ass human man dressing up in big pants and your big bastard shoes, putting on stupid makeup, it is the scariest thing. And I mean, John Wayne Gacy, they should have been banned after that. And listen, I'm not here to sort of shit on anyone's job, but there's got to be something better.
Hey man, I'm with you, brother. down with the clown, bro. Down with the clown, brother. No, dude, my wife, she has the same condition. Like, we went to this like really nice like brunch restaurant with my family, and dude, it was around Easter or some weird shit, and for whatever reason, there was a fucking clown that like wasn't advertised or anything, that was there.
Was it advertised?
And dude,
a wild clown.
Like, dude, yeah, it just like, for some reason the restaurant was like, the kids will love this for Easter, and like, dude, there was just a fucking clown that was not advertised and full makeup, everything. And I watched it walk up the stairs, and my wife was facing me, so it was behind her. And I was like, oh fuck. And I was like, and like my family, she had already been vocal about the fact that she's terrified of clowns, and I was like, yeah, we might have to go. Like, we might have to go. And it was to the point where like I had to go to the owners and was like, my wife is terrified of clowns. And I told my wife, I was like, don't turn around. Don't fucking turn around. So I had to go tell the owners, like, keep the fucking clown away from our table, because my wife will have a full-on panic attack, and like, you'll have to call an ambulance.
Are you talking about like going under the table, shivering,
yes, screaming 100%? If that fucking clown would have walked over to our table, it would have been a day to remember for everybody that was at
Was
that
there
restaurant.
any part of you that thought for a split second even, I should let this clown come over?
Don't tell her. I should let this play out to see how the fuck
You
this
get a
goes
free
down.
meal. You get everybody paid for.
Yeah.
She'd be like, you knew.
Be like, I didn't see it, babe. I'm sorry.
Right. Like, you just didn't see the
It was
clown.
it was hiding in plain
motioning him
sight.
out.
I couldn't see it.
I start motioning him over. I'm like, they're like, who is it? Oh, it's the waiter. Come on over. Come on over. Dude,
From your flower.
I'm with you. I don't understand the clown thing. Like, everybody has their own thing. You know, like I'm a collector. Like, I collect movie memorabilia. Like, there's fucking millions of people that probably wouldn't understand my fascination for obtaining these things. The same way that I don't understand why someone would be like, you know what I want to do? Put fucking face paint on and be a clown. I don't get it. I'm with you.
Well, you'll find out in a minute why, because I'm gonna be down with the clown till I'm dead in the ground.
There it is.
For real. I mean,
Justin is a juggalo.
Not even gonna lie, I was for a long, long time. And, you know, deep in my heart, me and our boy Dave Ferguson were young juggalos. And for me, I think definitely that was, I mean, I'd already seen the It miniseries directed by Tommy Lee Wallace. Big fan of that as a kid. Definitely slightly frightened by it. But my real entryway into the world of clowns was from Insane Clown Posse, when I watched their shockumentary VHS, and I was won over. I was a clown. And then from there, Jeremy, I painted my face like a clown every opportunity I got, even in some instances, going to high school, going into the bathroom, and painting my face like Shaggy 2
During his high school hookups, he said, nah, babe, the clown makeup stays on.
Dude, I'm not even gonna lie to you. I took a girl's virginity in a cemetery, and she made me put the face paint on as Violent J.
Really?
I'm dead serious.
Did you
and
spray her down with
that's
the
what's
soda
wrong with you.
afterwards?
On Halloween, we didn't throw eggs at people. We literally brought Faygo, and I'm not even shitting you. We would just spray people with Faygo, and they'd get that. Believe me, there was a couple of fist fights because of that.
The Juggalo thing, I kind of get. It's kind of a movement. The Juggalo thing, I get a little bit, but straight up clowns, like, whoa!
I'm talking,
I don't get that shit.
I'm talking about these men who want to infiltrate children's parties and have kids sit in front of them and do shit. Anyway.
Jesus.
I don't like. The thing is, different to your wife. My reaction is stillness. My entire body shuts down. If I walk down the street and if there is an unannounced clown, as you described it, everything sort of melts and I kind of go into it. And it's because I fainted at the circus when I was a kid. My friend's parents took me to the big top that was in town, and I remember I was sat only on the second row, and 40 clowns come out of a car, and my heart was already racing a bit, and I was like, I'm a bit uncomfortable. I'm not sure I like them. And the main clown walked over to me, pointed straight at me, and I was like, doing the looking behind, thinking it better fucking not be me. And it was. And as he leant down, because he needed a volunteer, I didn't volunteer, he chose me. He leant down to put his hand out to take my hand, and as he did, he blocked the light, so he became a silhouette. And it was just this silhouette of this giant clown, because the perspective of it as well. And then the closer he got to me, the front of his face just came into light, so that all I could see was this glowing middle of a clown's face about 30 centimeters away from mine.
You need to make a movie with this scene in it. Absolutely.
That description and like being able to see you describe it is fucking terrifying. I understand. Right. I understand it. Jesus Christ.
So death to clowns.
That's hard to follow up. My clown story, for anybody who listens, knows that my dad likes to sleep naked. And
balls of
as
swinging.
You do, his ghoulies were out.
Here we go.
His ghoulies were out haunting everyone in our house. You'd hear like a scratching and be like, what the fuck is that? Be like, oh, it's just dad. He's like on the wall. But like I said, I slept in the basement, so we had the TV out there that I could watch whatever was on TV. It would either be like reruns of Full House at like midnight, or like the Girls Gone Wild commercials on Comedy Central. And
we know what you were doing there.
And every time that I was out there, like I would, I'd hear something and I'd like pause it real quick or turn it off and skip the channel so that you can't hit last channel and it finds out what I was watching. But there was one night where I stopped on AMC and they were showing the It miniseries, and it was the scene at the beginning where Tim Curry as Pennywise is like in between the clotheslines, and and at first he just seems like a normal clown. Like he looks scary, but you're like, oh, like this is fine. And then like the blanket goes in front of him and it comes back and the teeth are out and everything. And like I had a similar reaction like you did. Like I was just frozen and like the remote was right there, but I couldn't move. And I was like, this is fucking scary. I must have been 10, 11. So as fate would have it, the power goes out as I'm watching this movie. And I was like, shit.
No.
So I'm walking down the hallway to my room, and by walking, it's basically like a crawl. Like I'm touching the wall, taking a step, listening for anything behind me, taking another step, touching the wall. Well, my dad at the same time was coming down the stairs to check on the breakers, and we just happened to hit right at the same time. So his body just ran into me as I think there's a clown. I start screaming. He starts screaming. It was not great. So there's a little bit of trauma involved with that. Outside of that, I'm okay with clowns now as an adult.
So was your dad
he was naked? I felt it. I felt his ghoulie.
like his ghoulie mash? Did it like mash?
It wasn't my face. It like hit my forearm.
Yeah,
like you could feel the head. Like you knew.
I think we're getting a little bit.
You knew what was happening.
Weird incest territory here.
Well, he wasn't my real dad.
Sorry.
He adopted me, so it's not.
This is what happens when you bring brain stew on your podcast, brother.
Brain stew gets a little brain rot.
Right?
Yeah. Isn't that perfect there?
Yeah, I know. Didn't even plan it. It's perfect. Fuck. Well, this is wow. I'm glad we've all got that out. I feel like we've purged a little.
I've got to interject one more thing real quick.
Please,
dude. clowns, I feel like it's so oversaturated now. I feel like it's such an easy thing to throw into a horror film now to sell your film. Clowns sell, man. I mean, if you look at Terrifier, have you seen Terrifier?
Yeah.
What'd you think of it?
Fucking rough.
Yeah, like rough as in like brutal and disgusting and
just so brutal. And actually that he does freak me out just because that's clearly just a really savage man in makeup.
Yeah.
It's horrible.
I feel like the whole clown thing is just becoming oversaturated, though. Like, it's just like, oh, okay, like, put a clown in it, and it's gonna fucking sell. Yeah. And
just
it
like
does,
the slasher genre said, put a mask on the guy and a knife in his hand.
Right.
Go with it.
And there it is. There it is. I mean, Terrifier, I personally don't... I've watched it, and it's really well made. The deaths are fucking
I thought you
fantastic.
liked that movie.
Dude,
I remember you texting me after you watched it and said I liked that movie.
As an 80s slasher fan, like, I appreciate it for the practical effects and the things that they did in the film. And I'm not saying it's a bad film, but it literally is just an hour and a half of this clown just fucking killing people
and people up.
And I don't understand the fandom behind it. I think us as horror fans are so thirsty for the next thing. Like, give me a new Michael Myers, give me a new Freddy Krueger. That they're like, oh, okay, Art the Clown is like a new horror icon. To where like,
but they're really pushing it. It feels
hardcore.
Like they're pushing it to be it before the fans are asking for it. It's like they're forcing us to go, take him on as your new hero, your anti-hero, and we're like, okay, oh right, okay, he's so like in everyone's face all the time.
I mean, it's seeming to work. So I think they're doing a really good job, but.
For sure. I'm like I said, I'm not bad mouthing it. I personally just don't.
No.
I don't. As a lifelong horror fan, I don't particularly understand the fandom behind it. To where like, dude, people are getting this guy fucking tattooed on their bodies, and I'm like,
yeah.
Good for them. I don't get it yet. You know,
Bro,
the second one.
I hope
The second one looks like it's bringing.
I hope you're more excited when we review that movie later this year and get the filmmakers and shit on the show. So,
dude, I have friends that have worked with them. So.
Yeah, I know.
Jeremy's gonna be like, this was my favorite movie of all time.
Jeremy's like, I'm actually a producer on the movie, but I'm not gonna admit it.
I'm seeing the second one in a few weeks at London Fright Fest.
Oh shit! So is that where it's premiering? It is, isn't it? Yeah. So you're lucky there with that. That's awesome.
So I'll report back on that.
You know,
let us know.
So who's gonna give me a synopsis for Killer Clowns from Outer
Jeremy,
Space?
did you make one?
I did make one.
You go first. Can we do multiple ones?
So
okay, all right.
Oh, please.
My synopsis for Killer Klowns from Outer Space is: kids are trying to fuck in their cars when a spaceship shaped like a carnival tent shows up. Alien clowns start turning people into cotton candy cocoons and drinking their blood through spiky straws. It's up to a police officer and two college kids who are in a love triangle to stop these evil clowns from eating everyone on our planet.
That's pretty good. Very comprehensive.
That is. Yeah.
I went for a shorter route, and I just said, after a sinister set of circus freaks crash land, a quiet town full of horny teens find themselves in a sticky mess, and not the kind they were expecting.
Hey.
So,
I like it. And there's quite a bit of alliteration in there as well.
Yeah,
that was poetic.
It took me a while.
Thank you.
But I got it.
Yeah. Well, I think we can't really discuss this film without talking about the theme song by the Dickies. I really miss those days when horror movies had rock songs recorded based on the title of the movie. Like, you just don't get, like, what would it be now? This shit is hereditary. It just
that's actually pretty
it wouldn't
good.
even be that. I mean, but right from the opening of this movie, that theme music conveying like a straight up homage to 1950s science fiction monster movies mixed with a clown theme, electric guitar. It instantly gives you a taste of what you're in for, and it gets you excited as a viewer, especially when the film came out. I mean, that sound instantly relays to your brain like, I know what the fuck I'm watching right now.
You're so right. I miss when horror films always had a song that played over the credits that was about the movie you just watched. Dude, fucking Maniac Cop. There's like a Maniac Cop rap song. Fright Night, young and...
By J.G. Old's band, I mean, Dream Warriors, you could go on and on, Alice.
The one that comes to mind for me is the Ramones' Pet Sematary.
Yep. Monster Squad had one. Fucking dude. Amazing. Somebody needs to put out a compilation of all
especially
of those.
with. I mean, think about it logically though. with 80s nostalgia being such a heavy thing right now, like, dude, Walmart's capitalizing on it. Everyone's capitalizing on the idea of 80s nostalgia. You'd think that some new horror movies would be like, let's do that shit.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
but is it to do with, well, especially the place we're in with horror at the moment, and I hate the fucking term elevated horror or post horror, but
no such thing.
Right,
no such thing.
Thank you. Thank you. That's what I say. But because we are, it's taken a long time for us to get back to a place where we were in the 70s, when we were being sort of getting the accolades and being respected a little bit more, and I feel like it doesn't fit with what we're putting out. I mean, Terrifier, actually, that sort of film probably could have a theme tune with a fun, punk Terrifier theme.
I love that. I think it's the slasher genre in general right now that's the only thing really trying to stick to its 80s roots. Everything else is still really kind of sticking with what's going to scare, the modern 16-year-old and her boyfriend when they go to the movies on Friday night. And that makes sense, because that's what it's always been about. The 80s were a different time. It was a different society. The pop culture was completely different than it is now. I mean, who would they even
Well, that's what I was going to say.
To do like
on a
song
side
like
note,
like,
it would be
I mean?
like, all right, so let's say you have a big horror movie coming out. Let's say Ari Aster's next movie, and all of a sudden The Weeknd is playing over the opening credits. Like, come on.
No, you can't even do
so
that.
It's just, I don't
can't
think
even
you can
do
get back to it. Like,
that.
there's so many things that I see from Bloody Disgusting or Dread Central, whoever, that it's like, oh, this new movie's coming out where it's going to be focusing on the 80s. And it's like, okay, we get that a lot. And then nothing else happens with it. It's just like your run-of-the-mill slasher that just takes place in the 80s. So
I'm kind of sick of films purely relying on nostalgia.
Yep.
I
and
agree
no
with
plot.
you. I agree with you. And 5 or 6 years ago, I would have disagreed with that statement, but I think there was a purity to that era where, Stranger Things came out, and even before that, there was Turbo Kid and so many other things that were like they were love letters to what we grew up loving. It wasn't necessarily trying to rely completely on the fact that this is 80s. Listen to the synthesizer score. This is all we're giving you, but it doesn't actually feel like those movies we grew up with. Now why not? We'll do it that way. And they all look and feel kind of the same, so
it also feels like there's a lot of love for the 70s lately with X and the Black Phone.
Well, thank God for High West.
Yeah. I prefer that grindhouse 70s that we're looking at the moment, where it seems like we're sliding into that. But just looking at this film itself, it shows you that you can do nostalgia really well, because this is all about those 50s, those drive-in sci-fi films.
100%.
Even this opening thing, you got this sort of hit guy on his porch going and following where the comets landed. All that feels so those 50s sci-fis.
Yeah, it's funny.
I love that farmer.
I love the farmer who played by Royal Dano, who literally plays pretty much the same identical character in this as he does in a movie 2 years later, Spaced Invaders, the confused old man that lives on a fucking farm with a dog. It's the same character. Have you guys ever seen Spaced Invaders?
Isn't that how the Blob opens up with Steve McQueen?
Yeah, it must. Yeah, the Blob does.
It is.
Yeah, it's exactly the same.
What's interesting is that John Vernon, that plays Sheriff Curtis Mooney, and
Warner, it's the Dean,
and Royal Dano both starred in the Clint Eastwood Outlaw Josie Wales.
Together.
I had to fucking think. I was like, wait a minute, what is the title? Yeah, The Outlaw Josie Wales, which is a fucking great Clint Eastwood Western film.
Classic.
So it's crazy to see these guys that come from this like really old Hollywood. Like they came up, making movies in like the 50s and 60s. These really serious movies. So like I would have loved to have heard how they felt about the movie that they were making,
being on set
in
together.
Killer Klowns.
I mean, they're probably happy they were getting work, though.
They both eat up their scenes. They're amazing in this, both of them. They
fantastic.
Stick out so much. It's fucking great. And that's clearly a choice for the brothers, the Chiodo Brothers. They want to see if they can get those guys that were probably heroes to them back in the day. And actually, let's talk about them, the Chiodo Brothers, because this is obviously their baby, and they'd done Critters before this and various other stuff. But I mean, the amount of times you see the name Chiodo in the opening credits, it's almost a joke. I'm like, okay, just say Killer Klowns from Outer Space by the Chiodo Brothers. But the thing is, I believe I read that they actually gave the reins of the effects over to other people on this one. Is that right?
Yep.
Oh,
Oh, here we go.
All right, Jeremy.
Oh, man.
Jeremy's full on mode. Oh no.
Here we go.
You'll have to take a screenshot for the
I cannot
for the image for this
believe-
one.
I must. I'm gonna have to take a photo too for.
I don't like that.
social media.
It's
I don't
slightly
like
unsettling.
that.
Dude, as we were recording, I was like, oh shit, I have a Killer Klowns mask right there.
Yep.
Damn.
Yeah, you do.
Need that.
Underneath the pile of autographs worth $10,000.
Did you guys also notice, like, in the credits, like, it goes by every brother's name specifically? Like, it doesn't just say, like, Chiodo Brothers. It's like, it has to say their name. Because it's the same thing. I was watching it, and I was like, oh, man, they were really, like, trying to sell that they were in on this. Like,
Well, dude, they produced it. All three of them produced it. Two of them
wrote it.
wrote it.
no,
One of them
I mean, I'm
directed
saying
it.
it's
So-
great, but, like, they're still together at this point, so wouldn't you
Also,
think, like,
there's a thing that you have with the Screen Actors Guild or whatever the fuck it is with the MPA, whatever the fuck, not MPA, but you know what I mean. Like you're required to include all of that information in the beginning of the movie. It never used to be that way, but then in the 80s
Yeah.
it was.
Makes
So,
sense.
I mean,
Yeah.
It went from you had to, then you didn't have to, then you had to again.
All right.
And that's why in the early movies, you'd get the entire credits, like in the 1940s and shit, you'd get the entire credit scenes in the beginning because they didn't do an after thing. It'd be the end, and that was the end of it.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely everything.
give them all the props, man.
No,
That's
I
the
think
reason this
I
movie
think it's
kicks
great,
so
but,
much
like, why
ass.
couldn't they have just had, like, an LLC or something, like Chiodo's Brothers?
Because
I think-
each one of them did a different thing.
But when it was, I know what you're saying. When it's like one job and all three names.
Yeah.
But I was watching a vintage interview with them, and they were laughing about that opening scene, and saying we found it hilarious that our names, that surname came up so many times. So they thought about adding some random jobs that didn't exist, but they didn't end up doing that. But also just their vision for this. It's very clearly, because we have our Mike and Debbie, who I guess are our protagonists, but for the most part, they're kind of out of the action, and it's mostly just a series of vignettes and gags of these clowns, and the kids feel so insignificant, and it's obviously, you know that they've got together and gone, what would be a fun way to kill someone, and it's just one after another, and every single one is a fucking winner.
Ugh.
So what scene made you laugh out loud? There's one in particular that makes me legit howl laugh every time I see it. And it's when Debbie is about to, like, try and jump out the window, and all the clowns, they have the little they have on fire department helmets, and they've got the little trampoline thing to catch her if she jumps
the
out.
bathroom scene is one of my I think it probably is my favorite scene in the entire movie, actually, with the little baby
The snake
Yeah.
clowns.
clowns,
Yeah.
the snake
Snake
clowns,
clowns,
or
yeah.
there's another name someone gave them online, like Egg Me Clowns or something. I don't know
Right.
if that's correct or not, but because I was like, what the hell are these things called? I've never actually heard a name for these things. But if you look online, there are a lot of actual, like, aftermarket artists that create these little baby things in different, like, versions.
You can get them,
And they're-
right.
I think they're the scariest, for me at least. They're overall the scariest things you see in the movie.
Yeah.
Also, like,
very
with
princess out there.
the hose underneath the head, like, spraying and shit. It's so fucking hilarious.
The
And then
part
she
that always
sprays
makes
hairspray on 'em.
me just laugh out loud is when the security guard is like, what are you planning on doing with those pies, boys?
Boys.
And he just gets,
Pies.
like, killed by the pies, which is funny because I was listening to an interview they did, and they said that they had to actually, like, cut finger holes into the metal like pie holders, so that when they threw the pie, the metal didn't actually, like, go and hit someone, or it didn't stick, because they wanted to see, like, the custard actually, like, falling off of his face and
Right.
seeing, like, it mass around.
They used
people.
custard for that? Usually they would use shaving cream.
They
in
said
the-
they used custard. They said that it was, like, real
Wow.
pies, and they were like,
Okay.
"Oh yeah, like, when you use a real pie, like, it actually hurts someone that close." It's like, yeah, no fuck. Like,
That's why they use shaving cream.
Yes.
but so, and then, like, rewatching it with that knowledge, it's like, oh yeah, there's no metal tins there at all. It's all just
The
pie.
weirdest thing, I always thought he just suffocated. I don't know why I only noticed this time that there's acid in them and it's melted his
Yeah.
entire skin off.
Melted him.
They're brilliant.
What a way
Yeah,
to
so
go.
you've got the hand puppets, the shadow puppets, I mean, which is brilliant. Obviously, you've got I love that they've always got the right prop that they need as well, like the pizza box with the bottom missing, the box of chocolates. I think the weirdest one for me is the puppet show. So it's on the bandstand in the park at night, and I think the only thing stranger than there being a puppet show on a bandstand at night is this lone dude sauntering up out of the pitch black on his own. Red flag. I want to know why he's there.
Let me set the scene for you, and
I
I'll
think I
use
know what he was
Justin as an example.
I think I know what he was doing.
Let's say you're at a bar
Come on.
in a small town.
Yeah.
You've had like 8 or 9 Tito's and sodas.
Sure.
Right? You're walking back to your car. You see a nice park. You're a little drunk, a little loaded.
A little.
You walk in there. You see this gazebo. You're like, oh, that's pretty nice. Let me go up there and see the view. And then there's a puppet show. I would sit there. I'd be like, oh, okay, cool. That's what the vibes that I got from this guy. He was just like a drunk college kid who was like, "Oh, this is fun."
Maybe this is something I
mullet.
can whack off.
Speaking,
my
Yeah,
cooler.
exactly.
speaking of college kids, I love that the two cops that the two kids that Mooney arrests, right? They're like supposed to be college kids, even though the one kid is like fucking pretty much almost bald.
Bro,
It's like, okay,
At least 42.
That's the cure right there, dude. They got
dude, but his hair was like almost gone, and then they were like. Yeah,
whatever
so
new wave
these
band they
two
could
guys were fucking drinking, out of all things they could be drinking, wine. Like,
Well, I think they're queer coded, those two. I was so sure of it because
Yeah.
the way they're talking to each other, I was like, are they a couple? And the way they're being reprimanded, like, you're disgusting, you're bringing down this town. I was like, and he keeps going, like, you know, why couldn't you drink at home together? Why'd you have to go and drink out hidden in the park? And I was like, I know what they're up to.
I think you're
Well,
right.
very
Yeah.
true. Also, and to kind of like really go in depth there a little bit, they are a little bit lighter in terms of like their presence,
100%.
you know, their dialogue
It's
and how
the way
they
they
speak
speak.
and their cadence and everything. Yeah, I mean,
100%.
dude, I mean, it was definitely their new wave dudes, new wave punkers
Yeah.
from that period, but they're portrayed to be like that on purpose. I feel like they're not like. Because usually American punkers in movies at that time were portrayed as like tough dudes with chains around their necks and shit, and they'd be all like, you
Return of
know,
the Living
badass.
Dead.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
And
rather than that emo
You usually didn't
soft-
see that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
For
I'm
sure.
I'm sure of that. I really think that's in there.
I
Classic.
mean, honestly, if anything, I'm actually glad that that's in there. And it's not like, to me at least, they don't feel like a generic version of what that person would be. They actually gave legitimate performances, I think.
Yeah.
Even though everyone in this movie, let's make no mistake, is heightened times 10. You know, depending on what kind of character they're supposed to be, everyone is over the top in this movie. But for some
love
reason there,
that.
they came off as being actually like pretty
Authentic.
grounded people.
Well, here's the thing with that too: is like, yes, they're over the top, but what I appreciate about this is there are no like head nods or winks or like anything subtle like that where it's like, oh yeah, we know this movie sucks. Like, they were committed to it, and yeah, it went maybe 5 times more than they had to in some scenes, but I appreciated that they didn't just cop out.
Yeah, I agree. I think everyone plays it for real, which is a lot to ask when you look at the situation they've been put in. Everyone plays it like it's happening. Like the poor pharmacist guy who has to watch the clowns just trashing the pharmacy. And
His
obviously-
facial expressions
and his
to each
face,
scene, yeah.
Like, because obviously
So
he's not
funny.
actually watching it happen, and they've obviously just gone, right, we're going to record for 10 minutes. Just act like you're constantly watching clowns smash up your place, and he's like just trembling. Brilliant.
I think we have a problem here.
Yes. Oh.
Well, the amount of trembling that old bastard did, I'm surprised he didn't have a heart attack on the spot. Poor
Maybe that's
guy.
what happened.
Wow.
Who knows?
Yeah.
He's
maybe that was
alive. I
his
looked it up on
demise.
IMDb. He's alive. Well, I mean, he lived. That he's not alive now.
He lived
but he
past
was
this
alive
film.
after that.
He's
He
he's
lived
dead
past
now.
the film. He got 25 cents in residuals the year after.
His estate
always,
is very happy.
Yes, his estate. I always assumed that when Shorty, what are you gonna do? Knock my block off? When he does, I always assumed.
That was fucking good, dude. That was good. That was a good, like, tough guy American
Thank
accent.
you. 80s tough
That was
guy.
really
Yeah.
good.
That's 80s tough guy, though.
Yeah.
You always like that, you know. But I always assumed that this was post Jason Takes Manhattan, but actually it's the year before, because I thought it was.
Yeah.
It was just.
Yeah, this is 88. That was 89. Yeah.
Right. Well, there you go.
Oh, I love that
The
movie.
clown enticing. This is when I think it starts to turn a little bit and it gets a little bit darker. The clown enticing the little girl to come out from the fast food restaurant. One, Ronald McDonald, it makes me think of, which is childhood trauma. It's really sinister, though. I mean, and also, he's not going to turn her into candy. He's got a fucking mallet. He plans to bludgeon her to death. It's dark.
Well,
It definitely is dark.
I hate kids, so I was actually okay with this. scene,
Right.
with how it was
I'll
done.
let my daughter know that, Brady. Thanks.
I love Scarlett. I would never bludgeon her, but I don't have a relationship with Vivian. Okay, so I don't know how that would go. But yeah, this scene, like when he's just. The other thing too is like, how did nobody see this clown?
Yeah, it's just her.
Except this little girl. like it seems like a popular place, right? Like everybody's there. And all of a sudden she's the only one who can see the clown. And even she gets to the door where he's maybe a foot away. And the mom comes up and says, "No, you have to come eat your cheeseburger." Yeah. And you don't see the clown and be like, actually, "Oh, what are you doing?"
I have a great comment on that. I feel like it's definitely, in terms of what they were trying to convey, very similar to what the Black Phone just did in the late 1970s with all the child abductions, where there'd be parents with their kids on playgrounds. They'd be there with them, and the kid would see someone with a balloon near a van, and they'd wander off, and the parents wouldn't even notice. Right. The kid would get in the van, they'd be abducted right before their eyes, or not before their eyes, because they weren't fucking looking, and they'd be gone, and they would be freaking out. Where's my kid? I think it's a similar. They were trying to present actual dangers. So you're totally correct in saying that. This is one of the most sinister, dangerous, almost, I would say, suspenseful moments in the movie, because you're like, oh my God, this kid's actually going to get it.
Yeah. I think that is a big moment. And also when Mooney is the ventriloquist, it's like they're using him as a doll. That was when I watched this movie. So for a little background, like I didn't watch this movie until one night Justin and I got drunk, and I let slip that I had never seen
made you watch this movie.
And he was like, "We're going back to my house right now and watching this movie." And I was like, all right, I'm going to watch some like cheesy ass clown movie. I don't even really like clowns. And then I was just enamored. But this scene was like everything else up to this point, besides the little girl, is pretty lighthearted and you can take it for what it is. But then when he's holding him up and he's like, oh, and then afterwards he just like slings his hand and all the blood comes off.
Make a dummy out of yourself, but you're not going to make a dummy out of me.
Yeah, a little foreshadowing there.
Love that little line
I completely
there.
agree. Yeah, you're right. This third act, it just turns. And that bit with the girl does remind me exactly of that moment you're talking about in the miniseries of It, where, you know, there's that connection, and then we get to see Pennywise actually turn in that one, whereas she gets saved in this one. And and it goes into this much darker place where, watching it this time round, I was like, oh, kids could watch this, although the concept of those cotton candy cocoons is fucking horrible. Like, it's sort of dissolving you or kind of melting you inside it, a bit like the Blob, I guess that's a reference to.
Well, and I think also the pods from Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Course.
Like, they're
I was
going
to ask that. Yeah. So in their interview, the brothers said that, like everybody keeps calling us out on this and saying like, oh, did you reference that? And I don't think we did overtly, but it must have been there. They had to have known.
Yeah. Well, I think subconsciously. I mean, Jeremy's made a movie before, so I feel like, when you're making a movie and you're writing a movie, you're taking all of your influences from the back of your head, even not even knowing what you're doing. Like it just comes out on paper. And at this time when they made this movie, think logically. I mean, the same year the Blob remake actually came out, which was fantastic, but what they were trying to do was an awesome 80s version of a 1950s throwback. And it succeeds, I feel like, in almost every single way, tonally, visually, and everything else, because it was able to match that cheeseball over the topness of the 50s with the 80s cheeseball over the topness that the 80s was allowing you to have as a horror filmmaker. So I think sometimes homages or influences are
slip incidentally.
And it's exactly. And sometimes they're done on purpose, like we were just talking about earlier. Like, let's put a guy in a mask with a knife, and that's our movie. Like, who gives a shit? It'll make money, So I feel like here their hearts were in the right places. Of course, it's like the Blob. Of course, it's Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Of course, it's so many other movies from that time period. But I don't personally feel like it was done like as an intentional thing.
So let me ask this then, and I don't mean to hijack this, but since we're all here, what is the line between homage and straight ripoff? Because with Ty West's X, it was divided. Like, we had so many people telling us like, oh man, this is just a straight ripoff of all these movies like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but like I didn't feel that way. So what do you guys think is the difference?
Personally, the line between ripoff and homage is admitting it.
Yeah.
And
I like that. Yeah.
I think that's where it is. Either you say you didn't mean for it to be in there, and therefore it's a fucking ripoff. Or you say, it's one of my favorite films and it inspired me, and then it's an homage. That's kind of what I think. Dude,
Quentin Tarantino has been doing that his entire career. He takes these pocket of films that he loves and that he's grown up with, and he's like, I'm gonna do that. That's what I want to do right now. And I think that if you add your own stamp to it and you're a creative person and you can do something new and fresh with it, completely invited. Now, if you take, look at all the, in the 1980s, all of the Friday the 13th copycat films, sometimes we got a writer or a studio that said, you know what, I'm going to take this basic idea, but I think I've got a good story to tell, like The fucking Burning. I think The Burning is a better film than Friday the 13th. I'm throwing that out there.
Even though it's hard to compare those two because I know that those two movies were kind of in production at a similar time.
And one's Weinstein.
But I know what you mean.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, I don't give a fuck. The movie's
so
still
Scream,
still a
but,
masterpiece.
Yeah,
but
it is.
I mean, I agree with what Jeremy said. It's all
and
about
the Prowler.
It's all about intention.
The Prowler's in my top 3 slashers of all time,
It's
and
so
that's
good.
especially because of Tom Savini's work in that. But
So good.
So you can do that. It can stand on its own, I guess.
Because I guess the reality is, and I think I was having this conversation with someone a few weeks ago at one of my horror screenings, homage is unintentional sometimes. I feel like all of your influences seep into every single thing you do. Some filmmakers wear it on their shoulder, others don't. And I feel like, dude, all art is influenced by other art that came before it, whether it's intentional or not. Music, movies, television, it doesn't matter. You can find influences in literally everything you watch. If you watch a new vampire show, you're going to see Dracula in there. You might see some Fright Night. You might see some Lost Boys,
some
a
Buffy.
new slasher.
Yep.
You see some Halloween. Friday. It literally doesn't even matter anymore. That's why, for me personally, I don't give a fuck. I really don't. I mean, some of my favorite movies are ripoffs of other movies. People are like, that's the same movie as that. And I'm like, I don't care. It's just as good, maybe not as good, or maybe it's even better to me. But as long as it has something that I like in it, that's all that really matters to me. And that's the thing about this movie is up until this point, sure, we had aliens coming down from the sky, putting people in pods, or a giant gelatin creature basically just eating people up and stuff. But we never had a movie full of clowns, distinctly created, well designed. I mean, this movie in a nutshell is one of the most creative movies of the era. And it was made for, I think, Jeremy, like, what, $1 million? Reportedly maybe $2 million at the most. And almost that entire budget went to all the effects in the movie, which show because they're all really damn good.
Right, like even the
set designs, too.
The production design is unparalleled in this. And even the cheap shit, like, the cardboard sort of frames of doors that you can see. But when they just
you can see wobbling around almost
yeah.
at times.
But it's just the way the angles and everything they use, it's all shot so perfectly, and the production design is incredible. And when they have backdrops in, it's seamless. It just, even watching, you can see a few of the zippers and the buttons because I watched it in a Blu-ray, but
I can't wait for the 4K because I'm sure it's going to look even better.
Right,
you'll see even more of that stuff. But
So with the sequel always being in delay, but lately it seems like
Sci-Fi Channel is the
gonna
last
happen.
that I heard is that Sci-Fi Channel is trying to get it up off the ground. I last year I got to see Grant Kramer and Suzanne Snyder at a convention close to my house and talked with them about it, and they said, look, there has been a lot of rumblings and a lot of talks, and we've talked to the Chiodo Brothers, and I know that they're closer now than they've ever been to making it a reality. So They said, we'll see.
How do you feel like with that? Like, I don't know, man.
I want it.
The original movie has
No
so many
CGI,
good
though.
practical effects, and that's what I'm saying. Like, what if they opt for CGI?
if they're involved,
so
it's not happening.
No.
So was it last year or early this year? The Slumber Party Massacre, like, kind of redo thing, because I wouldn't necessarily call it a remake.
No.
Came out on the Sci-Fi Channel, and they hired a really fucking good director that was passionate about it. Dude, they didn't do a CGI mess. They did practical shit, and it was done so well that it blew my fucking mind that this was a Sci-Fi Channel production. And immediately after watching that, I said, holy shit, if they can do this with Killer Klowns, I am so on board.
After 20 years of abysmal messes that they've produced, I agree with you. I mean, I think the movie, Jeremy, was pretty good. I thought the Slumber Party Massacre
It wasn't perfect.
was pretty good. But, I mean, I agree with you. If they're able to like, seriously just go, here you go, hand it to someone that really cares and knows what they're doing, rightfully so. And when we talked to the brothers, when we went to the CritterCon, they actually told us, I remember being like, what's up, man? We got to know what's going on with that movie. And they said it's in their hands. We're here waiting for them to let us know, like we want to be involved, and we'll do whatever we can. If they're involved, dude, you know damn well these guys are stop motion, these guys are puppets, these guys are practical effects. They will never let the thing be all CGI. Maybe a little, because I feel like you kind of have to have that in today's world.
They'll just update
every movie.
certain bits. Like I
Certain
also
bits,
love just for time as well. But you know when when one of the noses pop and they turn into that spinning sort of mess of like a whirlwind, a green whirlwind.
Yeah, like when Dave in the police station.
Right.
Yeah, when he shoots.
Yeah, that. And they actually built this kind of cylinder with these fragments of mirror, because they thought obviously they're going to have someone doing the animation over the top, but they want the entire room to change, and so they have these fragments of mirror, and they just spun this thing round so that the light was hitting it, so it's going all over the walls as well. And it's just simple things like that, which I'm sure they will switch out for CGI if you wanted to do something like that, because it's just sticking.
It's easier.
Yeah, it's so much
easier.
easier.
It takes so little effort to do it that way.
So those sort of things I wouldn't mind.
Yeah, like when they were talking about they wanted the original opening scene to be like the guy and the girl making out in the car.
Right.
He kicks her out, and then he drives away, and there's the clown on the invisible like car next to him. Like listening to everything they had to go through, like days worth of shooting that was just wasted because the road was too bumpy or whatever. Nowadays, a studio can say, all right, we'll do CGI and just cut the costs and cut the labor.
Yeah.
And it's like, I know what you're saying, Justin. Like if they're in control in the reins, like they're going to make sure it's
or even
what they
having
do.
some creative say, in terms of being consultants.
What worries
or
me is that they're not going to get that creative say, and then we're going to get a Killer Klowns movie that's marketed as Killer Klowns, and then we get a CGI shit show.
Honestly, I don't think that'll happen.
I don't either. Just like Gremlins 3.
We have seen some properties do that, though, that have moved from practical into...
We have, but it's been a long time. I feel like in the past 5 or so years, a lot of studios have really come to terms with and understood the power and how important having those original filmmakers involved,
like Evil Dead reboot,
to their movie. Evil Dead reboot, the Halloween franchise, Scream franchise, Child's Play. They're like, well, they did a remake, which I actually really liked.
Yeah,
I thought it was fantastic. It's fun. But now they're like, let's give them a series. They gave them a series. It's fantastic. So they know that. They know that people are going to eat the shit up no matter what. If it's the brand name on the screen, they're going to watch it. But in reality, they want those fans to be happy. That's why they pay attention to the fans now. Sometimes, I hate to say it, they shouldn't pay as much attention to the fans as they do, because sometimes it hurts the product. It's more
Star Wars.
It's more, dude. Everything. Don't even say Star Wars.
But also that's the whole thing about the recent Scream, isn't it? It's all about that toxic fandom and how we feel we own it, and we will change.
And that's why I think it was very smart in saying so. But it's still catering to them while doing it and having commentary on it. That's why it's so smart.
Yeah,
I mean,
I was suddenly because I was pissed off with that ending, and I was like, "Oh, this doesn't have the impact of what I wanted this back." And then I realized I'm exactly what they are talking about.
Yeah, I mean, there's that fine line between, listen, I'm a fan and I love this thing, and I need to be a casual viewer to this thing as well, because sometimes you are the person they're directing the film at, and sometimes you're not. It really depends.
Right.
But I'm going back to, I think studios are smart now. They're going to have a focus group where it's like, let's bring the fans in, then let's bring in regular people. They do that all the time with these test screenings and everything else. So best of both worlds. I don't feel like if they do a new Killer Klowns movie, it will be shit. It may not be as good as the original, because let's face it, guys. I think we can all agree around the panel right now. You can't do 80s schlock now like they did in 1988 with this movie. It's just not even possible. Even when you try to replicate it, it's not even the same thing. Stranger Things has the advantage of, they have the serious nature of things going on. Great comedic actors. Everything is perfect when they present the 80s nostalgia in that show. But no one's tried to do 80s cheese to the level of Killer Klowns since I feel like I can't even remember the last time
there's an emotional
tried.
attachment as well, and that's why I feel we feel protective over these things. And you talked on this earlier, Justin, about how everything being made is aimed at kids who were the age we were when we first got into horror. And I keep finding that I put on the new Resident Evil series. I watched the first episode and I was like, fuck, I'm not part of this generation that it's aimed at anymore, and that everything's just disappointing me because it's not what I expect.
It's not for you.
No.
Yeah. And I guarantee you that in the 80s or even the early 90s, any era, there's going to be a generation that feels left out. Of course. You know, but also there's that understanding we have to have as a viewer, and myself, that, I mean, I've been critiquing movies and reviewing movies for 8 years now. I think sometimes you have to go in and just let the thing happen to you, even if it's something you love. And that's difficult for us because we grew up loving these things. We're a generation, particularly me and Jeremy, who are old as fuck. And we grew up having these things at an early age, and they're special to us. You know what I mean? So we hold them near and dear to our hearts. And sometimes some of those people that feel that way take it way closer to their heart than they should. Yeah. And they get too angry about it, and they're mean about it. And they're just
Halloween Kills. That's I mean, you're describing how we felt after Halloween Kills.
But at the same time, you and I still, even though we shit on it and we had problems with it, we were still not that guy that's like, I'm going to go shoot the filmmaker because you ruined my childhood. We don't. That's seriously, I'm so passionately against that. But if something hurts you, it hurts you, and you're going to be honest about it. But just relay that and like be adult as you can be. I mean, I'm a man-child myself, but in reality here, we're talking about a movie about killer alien clowns from outer space that come down and wrap people in cotton candy. And it's literally, in my opinion, I feel like one of the funnest movies of the entire 80s horror science fiction era.
And a huge part of that is the special effects behind the movie. You know, like, I have such adoration and love for the special effects artists who were doing what they were doing during that time. I mean, dude, you had K&B effects that were coming out with Evil Dead 2, you know, you had your Tom Savini, you had the Mark Shostrom that was working on the Phantasm films.
John Carl Buechler.
Boatine. Oh, dude, I fucking love Buechler.
Me too.
I have a picture of his barefoot. I can send it to you.
Oh, amazing.
I'm just letting you know.
Like his foot without socks on? Or like
yeah, dude, his foot without socks on, because he used to sign at conventions with no shoes on, and his fucking foot is weird looking. So I took a picture. I took a picture of it. But yeah, dude, Buechler, fucking Kevin Yeager. I mean, dude,
they were rock stars. It was just that time. Practical effects, where they were the people, and that's what happened to me. Is because we didn't have the internet. It didn't exist. I would start to recognize names on films in the opening credits and go, hang on, I know that name from somewhere, and it wasn't, and I'd eventually start writing them down, and then the next time I saw that name, I'd write it down, and I started to go, so this is that guy, and I worked out different people's aesthetics, and I did this all on my own, and that's what got me hooked into this, and that's why when, you know, Clownzilla at the end, they're using perspective shots, so it's either tilted up so he looks huge, or it's above him and he's raised so the people look small, you know, shit like that. They're not going to do that. They're just going to make a massive fucking clown, aren't they?
Oh, for sure.
So it's the stuff like that is significant to me, that change. If they bring in a giant CGI clown, that just knowing that setup hasn't been thought of and the time hasn't been taken to do all that. Obviously, CGI is incredible, and it takes a lot of talent, and it's magic, and it's artistry. I don't take anything away from it, but there's something about the tangible effort of making something that didn't exist now physically exist that is magic to me and always will be.
So who's your favorite special effects artist? If you had a
I'd say
favorite?
Buechler and Savini. Yeah. I'd say, and they're both quite different. Especially Buechler, because he got to do a lot more fun stuff and make monsters and silly things, fucking Cellar Dweller and all that Full Moon shit.
Fuck yes.
Whereas, you know, a lot of Tom Savini's was much more realistic, or guts and brain and gore. And so they're both my favorites of their sort of their realm.
I feel like, Jeremy, just for his audience, you have to tell that Buechler story.
Oh, I dude, yeah. I know, I did. You were peeing, Justin.
Oh, God damn it. So his audience now knows what I do.
Yes, there we go.
Yeah.
I thought you'd think I was pouring my drink.
Stevie, I'm gonna fucking, I'm gonna send you a picture of John Carl Buechler's foot, and you're gonna be like, yo, that is absolutely weird looking. Well, I mean, dude, for me...
Have you seen Danny DeVito's feet? He's been posting those recently. That's his new favorite thing on Twitter, to post.
Are they hairy?
No, they are very interesting. You know the Killer Klowns. You know their fingers, the way it's like a sausage, and then it's got a tiny little black
All right,
Mound,
stop.
like a nail.
Stop.
Flip a trick.
Stop.
That is just like Danny DeVito's toes.
Jesus Christ.
Anyway, but yeah, send me a picture of his feet. But
I will, man.
yeah, has anyone got anything else they want to say before we wrap up about this fucking awesome film? What it really holds up, and I mean, it holds up to me personally. I don't know whether it would. I mean, all these films that I show people from my youth, they just don't get it.
Well, I can comment. I mean, I showed my now 18-year-old daughter this movie when she was, I think, 10 years old, 12 years old, around there. And she fucking loved it.
Right.
And she asked to watch it again. So, I mean, I feel like if you show them these movies without any explanation at all, just like, oh, it's a movie about clowns, and just let it happen to them.
Yeah.
Those are the
the
best
experience.
instances where it's different than, and I say this to other parents that are younger and stuff. Jeremy, you know this as well, because we were just talking pre-show about you showing, Monster Squad to your kids. But it's like, when you're like on streaming and there's like so many different choices, they'll never be able to comprehend that when we were younger, you picked out that thing from the video store and you watched it. You didn't, like, unless you were scared, you didn't stop it. You finished the fucking thing because your parents took you all the way down to the video store and rented it for you. You watched the movie from start to finish. Now kids can just go 15 minutes in, oh, this movie sucks, without even knowing if it sucks, and they'll switch to the next thing. Just show your kids, show your cousins, your nieces and nephews movies in a different way. Like, put in the disc, show them the case, show them the artwork. I think that's the most important thing. It really is. That's why physical media is so important. And I'm sorry to preach, but seriously.
No, I'm a collector.
Streaming is great, but physical media forever, motherfucker.
For sure.
Seriously.
Yeah, for
Rocco.
this movie, I think that the term gets thrown around a lot, but lightning in a bottle, like, that's what this was. Like, Justin summed it up perfectly. It's an 80s movie trying to recapture what the 50s was about. And they did it perfectly. The special effects are great. Like, if you want to go back and show someone, like, oh, what did peak 80s horror look like? This is at least top 3, if not the number 1.
Yeah.
Like, I just don't think you can get away from this movie. And people, like we already said on here, you don't even have to give a description. Just say, hey, we're going to watch this movie about, like, killer clowns from outer space.
Right.
Exactly.
Like,
Just
all
say
right,
the title,
cool.
dude.
Dude, I've actually shown my 6-year-old daughter this movie. I was watching it last year, so she was 5 at the time. I'm getting Parent of the Year award over here. I was watching it early in the morning because it had been a while since I had seen it, and I was like, oh, cool. And she was upstairs sleeping, and then she came downstairs and she was like, what are you watching? I said, I'm watching Killer Klowns from Outer Space.
I
And
remember
she
this
goes,
story. You told me this
Yeah.
story.
Yeah, she goes, can I watch it? And I'm like, okay. I don't think there's anything too, like, vulgar or whatever that I shouldn't let her see. And I was like, okay, but if you start to get scared, let me know. She was so fucking into it. So when I was watching it again today to prepare for the episode that we're doing right now, she walked in the room. She was like, oh, Killer Klowns from Outer Space. This is my favorite movie. Can I watch it? Dude, she sings the song all the time. She's like, the Killer Klowns from Outer Space. Ooh. Like, dude, she does it so good, too. So, like, I don't know.
So
It's
that's really, really nice to hear, actually.
Yeah, I'm passing it on,
Passing it on.
to the horror stuff.
We
to
all
my
need
kid.
to pass it on.
Which is cool because, like, she has organically, like, I'm not force feeding this to her. I mean, like, if Stevie, if you saw my basement, it's all horror movie memorabilia for the most part, and it's not like I'm like, hey, come watch this. So, like, she begs me. She's like, can we watch Halloween? And I'm like, no, you can't watch Halloween. Like, can we watch this? No, you can't watch this. So I fucked up and I let her watch Monster Squad the other day because, like, it had been a little while since I saw it. And I was like, dude, I watched it when I was her age on HBO. So I'm like, yeah, it's cool. Dude, the two bullies, they call Horace the F word, which, and I was like, and they say it,
no.
They say it twice, and I was like, God damn it. And then there's the scene where Rudy has the binoculars, and he's looking at the chick that's in her underwear, and I was like, fuck, I forgot about this too. But, I mean, outside of those few little things, like, she fucking loved Monster Squad. Like, she's so on board for it. And I've got one more little trivia thing. One little trivia thing for you, Stevie. Do you know the Ernest Scared Stupid connection to Killer Klowns?
No, I don't know the connection, and also Ernest didn't make it over here, or if it did,
dude.
it's only something I learnt about, many, many, many years later.
That's something that always interests me.
It's very American.
Considering that fine line between what you guys were able to get, the video nasties and all that stuff,
right.
It must have been even more exciting over there than here when you guys were able to actually get stuff and watch it. I mean, we're talking a long time ago, but
also,
even so.
Yeah, well, I was born in 84, which is when the video nasties
Oh, so we're only a year apart.
Yeah, I was born in 84 as
you
well,
look
bro.
young as fuck, dude. Holy
I was
shit.
born in 95. Yeah, I thought you were my age.
Oh, thank you.
Shut
so
up, Brady.
much.
No one
it's
likes
the cold weather.
Yeah, you young little bitch.
Get the fuck out of here.
All right, go
yeah,
pee,
so
guys.
I grew up when we were being well, not we, I wasn't a horror fan yet, but horror fans were being demonized, and we were all heathens and these awful people, and so we had the video nasty scare, and so coming out of that, they were so much more exciting because they were forbidden fruit, and also we had this horrible true crime about this kid James Bulger who was killed by 2 other children, and Child's Play 3 was blamed for it, and people were burning Child's Play 3 copies, and it was banned from it was my little secret because I loved it, all this shit, and so it made it even more exciting for me growing up during that. And then when suddenly a new film would be there that I hadn't heard of, but it had been out in the States or whatever, and it was Rosemary's Killer, actually. That's what the title over here for the Prowler was.
Yeah, that's right.
And I was just like, so they would just pop up out of nowhere, and I didn't know what they were when I was picking them up. So it was,
That's a beautiful thing, man.
Exciting.
That's a beautiful thing. Well, so the Chiodo Brothers did the special effects for Ernest Scared Stupid.
Right.
It's a great Halloween movie. It's a great kids movie. My kid fucking loves it. So it's Ernest is in this town, and like this goblin troll guy comes and he's turning all of the children into little wooden statues. And in the finale, spoiler of the film, like all of these other trolls,
Don't ruin it, though.
Go on.
all these other trolls and goblins show up. Well, dude, a couple of the goblins were literally refurbished Killer Klowns from Outer Space. They just painted the faces. So the movie, the actual masks were actually refurbished Killer Klowns from Outer Space.
And can you tell when you see it?
Oh, dude, if you pause it and you look, you're like, oh shit.
I'm going to
pause.
That is
100%.
I'll pause this year because I watch that every single year. Jeremy, I'm pretty sure you and I think that's where we bonded almost in the beginning, is that we both saw. Did you see it opening weekend? I saw it opening weekend.
Opening night, man. Yeah. Opening night. I was a huge Ernest fan, and the fact that I loved monsters and horror at a very young age, all of a sudden it was the best of both worlds, because Ernest was always a comedy thing that never involved
Ernest, man. He ruled, man.
Ernest didn't involve like monsters or horror, and then all of a sudden Ernest and the co-creator John Cherry, we're like, let's do this Halloween one with monsters with Ernest, and dude, it was the best of both worlds for me. So yeah, the Chiodo Brothers, they worked on that movie, and in the finale, pause it when the goblins show up, because it's literally Killer Klowns with their faces painted a different color. It's fucking awesome.
Well, there you go. 1, I've got a new film to watch, and 2, there's a fun little bit of trivia at the end.
Oh, so you've never seen Ernest Scared Stupid at all? So you have that available over there now?
Oh yeah,
you see it now?
Okay, yeah, get anything now.
Awesome.
Streaming,
awesome.
yeah.
Shit. Well, listen, guys. That was so fucking awesome. I definitely chose the right film. I'm so glad about that. Thank you so much. Tell the people at home where they can find you and your stuff.
Well, usually in this part of the show, it's not me who speaks. Jeremy, tell them where they can find us.
You can, hey, how's it going, rotten brain peoples?
Dude,
yeah, you can.
Just here, where
we call them rotters.
You're not in the U.S. anymore. You're in the UK.
Oh
dude.
yeah.
Oh, dude, no, I'm not. Oh, come on, man.
Come on, give me your best.
Come on, let's go.
I want it.
It's like you can find us on the internet at www.facebook.com//# Epic Guy Films.
That's all right. Actually.
Dot United. Dude,
Guy Films.
I went to I went to England for the first time in 2019. Dude, I went to England in 2019. I went to meet Sylvester Stallone at an event that he was doing there, and everybody was so fucking nice, and I became friends with the photographer of the event ahead of me going there. And so I told him, his name is Sean Keating, and I was like, dude, everybody here is so nice. And he goes, nah, it's because they like to hear you talk. They like your American accent. Yeah. He goes, if you would have walked up to those same people with a British accent, they would have told you to fuck right off.
Sounds about right.
That's interesting.
Sounds
Yeah.
about right.
So-
Because we grew up.
So
You were in our living rooms. We grew up especially with Friends and The Simpsons and shit like that. So that just it's a sort of, if the amygdala goes when we hear the American accent, we're like, oh, that's happiness.
So was my accent good? Did I do an okay job?
Sure. Okay. Thanks, guys.
Oh, I heard Australian there because
Yeah, it was a
little
my
bit
boys.
Aussie.
That was Crocodile Dundee.
My
That's
boys,
what that was.
the countdown down in Perth. I mean, to be fair, it's crazy because we're actually like our biggest place that Jeremy doesn't even know this. Our biggest crowd for our listeners is Australia. So it's
Really?
weird.
In Down Under.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
So Justin, tell them where they can actually find us,
yeah, go
Justin.
on.
And I'm not even going to try any accent because I'll sound
Oh, God.
Australian.
That's Australian, isn't
No. You can find us on every social media platform there is: Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and we're on pretty much every single podcast platform. And if you just want to hear the show direct, go to www.epicfilmguys.com.
Yes.
Literally everywhere. And you can pull out your ghoulie and play with it while you're listening to the show. We got some good rhythms. I'm sure you'll make it happen. It'll be good. But thanks so much. Seriously, Stevie, thanks again
Thank you, man.
for having us on. Brand. This was probably the biggest blast we've had in a long time. So
100%.
So
yeah.
much
yeah.
fun. I loved it, guys, and I'll definitely be getting you back further down the line because this was just too much fun.
anytime, seriously, you're like the most easy, laid back fucking host and rad host. I mean, honestly,
For sure.
in America, things are a little bit more, I mean, structured and stuff, and
Oh,
Competitive.
yeah. No, this
Fuck.
is great, man.
Fuck them.
Fuck
Yes.
them. Fuck the
Yeah.
Americans. I'm
Fuck
moving
you,
over
dude.
there, man.
Thank you so much, guys.
Thanks again.
Thanks, man.
Take care.
Thank you, man.
What an awesome bunch of guys, man. We had so much fun chatting. I almost forgot we were recording. I really hope to get Epic Film Guys back on at some point because we just feel like kindred spirits. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much for giving me your time. Next week, we are going oh so British and covering Ken Russell's The Lair of the White Worm with its show-stealing performance from Amanda Donahoe and classic Ken Russell bizarrism. Revisiting this movie made me realise just how much I love a good slice of British horror. Joining me to discuss this serpentine movie are the incredible hosts of the Midnight Mass podcast, friend of the pod, Michael Verratti, and legendary drag queen, Peaches Christ. You don't want to miss it. If you'd like to keep in touch and see what else is coming up, you can find us on Twitter, that is Stevie's Brainrot. On Instagram and Facebook, it's BrainrotPod. Or you can email me. You can email me hate, nudes, fanfiction, or recommendations to steviesbrainrot@gmail.com. And if you want immediate access to heaps of bonus episodes and articles, including our continued coverage of Fright Fest, join the Rotters Club at patreon.com/Stevie's Brainrot. See you next week, you stinking rotters. Toodles!